On the night of July 17, 1988, a shooting unfolded along Old Salisbury Road, a quiet stretch of country road just outside Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Over the course of 40 minutes, 9 people were shot, and 4 of them didn't make it home. The gunman, 24-year-old Michael Charles Hayes, stood in the middle of the road with a .22 caliber rifle, stopping cars and opening fire. What followed left a small southern community shaken and sparked a legal battle that raised lasting questions about mental illness, accountability, and what justice really means. This is Undersoil, where we dig into the stories that shaped the South and the ones it tried to forget. I'm your host, Katie Satterfield, and in our first episode, we're looking back at one of North Carolina's most unsettling true crime cases, the Old Salisbury Road shootings. It all happened in 1988, just outside of Winston-Salem, not far from where I live now. I hadn't heard about it growing up, but I found it later while researching cases that felt buried, and what I uncovered stayed with me. It's the kind of story that makes you look twice at the places you thought you knew. We'll walk through what happened that night, the trial that followed, and the debate over the insanity defense that left families searching for justice. Before the gunfire, before the headlines, before the courtroom drama, there was a man named Michael Charles Hayes. Born in 1964 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Hayes seemed to come from an ordinary family, but by his early teens, something began to shift. At 13, he was experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Friends and family watched as the paranoia crept in. Wild mood swings, unpredictable behavior, they sensed something was unraveling. All of this was building towards one terrible night in July of 1988. Michael Hayes would step into the street with a rifle and forever altered 9 lives. On Old Salisbury Road, no one expected trouble. It was a quiet stretch of asphalt lined with trees and flanked by farmland, a place where locals would drive home every night without any worry. But on the night of July 17, 1988, Michael Hayes was waiting. Gripped by a psychotic episode, he stood in the middle of the road, a .22 caliber rifle in hand, flagging down cars. Drivers slowed, confused by the lone figure in the dark. Then chaos completely erupted. Hayes opened fire. 9 people were shot and 4 did not survive. Crystal Cantrell, Tom Nicholson, Melinda Hayes, and Ronnie Hull were all victims of Michael this night. The first victim was Crystal Cantrell. She was just 16 years old. Around 11:25 p.m., she was driving her Camaro south on Old Salisbury Road. She pulled into the moped shop parking lot just to turn around, and she was shot and killed by Michael. The second was Thomas Nicholas. Age 24, he was driving past the moped shop in his pickup truck when he was shot. He managed to drive half a mile to his friend's house after getting shot. He got out, collapsed on the lawn, and died literally just 7 feet in front of his friend's door. Melinda Hayes, who was not related to Michael, was 21 and was the third fatality. By 11:49 p.m., civilians had tried to block the road. She drove around the barricade and was shot in her car about 100 yards north of the shop. Her car coasted to a stop, and Michael shot her again. The fourth victim was Ronald Hull. 32 years old, he was driving a Chevy Blazer with his wife, his 9-year-old son, and a neighbor. Trying to avoid the sheriff's roadblock, he turned on Old Salisbury Road at 11:53 p.m. He was stopped by the gunman and shot. His wife was wounded by the same bullet that killed him. But not everyone who was shot that night died. James Boyd, 45, was hit in the leg while driving past the moped shop. He floored the gas and made it to the Griffith Fire Department to call for help. Jeff Parks was 28, and he was shot in the head and neck. Greg Tyrell was 18, and he was hit in the shoulder. They both survived. Across the street, a neighbor, Stan Parks, told his wife and baby to lie on the floor as bullets struck their home. One shattered a back window, and Stan stayed on the phone with dispatch describing what he was seeing as he was seeing it. 2 EMS units were sent to the scene. Neither of them knew they were driving into an active shooting. The first ambulance arrived and pulled near the deputy's roadblock. A medic stepped out and shots rang out. The medic drove behind a patrol car, and his partner crouched inside the ambulance waiting for the shots to stop. Minutes later, the second EMS unit arrived. The driver was confronted by the gunman, who pointed his rifle and screamed. She threw the ambulance in reverse and backed away completely off of the scene. At 11:54 p.m., about 40 minutes after the first shots were fired, the gunman was finally stopped by the police. He had just killed Ronald Hull and was aiming his rifle at the 9-year-old boy in the back seat. 5 deputies were now on scene. 2 fired 3 shots, wounding the gunman, and then all 5 deputies tackled him. The gunman was identified as Michael Charles Hayes, 24, and critically injured. He was taken to the Baptist Hospital. 4 of the 5 injured victims were hospitalized and reported in stable condition by the next night. Later, Hayes told investigators he didn't believe his victims were humans. He said they were demons, evil entities sent to torment him. He described seeing red eyes and smelling sulfur. He claimed he could hear their voices, mocking him, threatening him. In his mind, the road had become a battleground between good and evil, and he believed he was the only one who could stop them. In March 1989, the trial of Michael Charles Hayes begins. Winston-Salem is fixated. The entire state is watching. Jury selection is exhausting. Everyone knows about the Old Salisbury Road shootings, and everyone has an opinion. The defense argues Michael Hayes was legally insane, lost in the grip of a psychotic episode, unable to tell reality from a nightmare. The prosecution insists Hayes knew exactly what he was doing. He loaded his rifle, stopped cars, questioned the victims, then pulled the trigger. After weeks of testimony, the jury returns its verdict: not guilty by reason of insanity. The whole courtroom erupts. To the victims' families, it feels like justice has just slipped away. And across North Carolina, people ask, what happens when the mind of a killer is broken? Michael Charles Hayes was committed to Dorothea Dix Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina. Doctors began treating him with antipsychotic medication. Over time, his condition improved, but Hayes didn't stay silent. He petitioned for release again and again. Each time, the families of his victims returned to the courtroom. They pleaded with the judges to keep him confined. Their presence became a fixture at these hearings, a living reminder of the lives lost and the trauma left behind. The case sparked public outcry. Lawmakers even debated a new legal category: guilty but insane, a verdict that would recognize mental illness but still hold defendants criminally responsible. Despite the controversy, the law was never changed. Each new petition from Hayes triggered a wave of fear and grief. For the families, the hearings reopened old wounds. At this point, they weren't just fighting for justice. They were fighting to be heard in a system that had already once let him walk free. In 2010, after more than 2 decades in psychiatric custody, Michael Charles Hayes was released from state care. His doctors said he was stable and no longer a threat to himself or others. To some, it was a testament to the power of treatment. A man once consumed by psychosis had been rehabilitated. But for the families of the victims, this release reopened old wounds. 4 lives had been taken, and now the man responsible was free to walk among them. This decision reignited the public debate about the limits of the insanity defense and the meaning of justice. The Old Salisbury Road shootings remain one of North Carolina's most unsettling cases, a collision of mental illness, legal ambiguity, and enduring grief. Decades later, the questions still linger. Well, this has been really fun, and I hope you enjoyed my brand new podcast, Undersoil. I'm your host, Katie Satterfield, and if this story moved you, subscribe and share. We'll be back soon, unraveling more cases that shaped North Carolina and reached far beyond. Next time, we journey into another mystery, one the world tried to forget. Until now. If you love this episode, you can show your support by tapping the link in the bio.